Hello everyone and welcome to my channel The Vagabond. So today I'm back again with another topic from the late night paranormal session, and today's topic is aliens. I guess a lot of you guys have been waiting for this session because alien is one of the most important topics of paranormal science. So to start with, where do we get this idea of alien and flying saucers or unidentified flying objects, or also known as UFOs? So how do we actually come across all this idea, this certain idea of saucer-shaped flying object, and we see it's been depicted in lots of movies. But where do we people get this idea of flying saucers, or circular shaped flat objects rotating on its own axis and then zooming out at light speed instantly? So where do we get this first? The first thing, it starts when in the mid of 1947, when during 2 years after the World War had stopped. This was a very time when USA and Russia started having this Cold War. Both USA and Russia, they started developing various kinds of experimental aircrafts. I don't want to spoil your fun and tell that those flying objects made by USA or Russia are the unknown or unidentified flying objects we call these flying saucers. It's not that. It's not even proved. But it is said that especially some of the flying crafts that was made during the World War, especially during the end of the World War, or rather they were retrieved after the World War, and those were Nazi aircrafts, and they had a circular flying saucer shape. But those were experimental aircrafts made by Nazi, but then they lost the war in World War in 1945. So the US and Russian, they retrieved all these Nazi aircrafts and experimental aircrafts, and they did a lot of research and reverse engineered all these technologies, and they tried to make something of their own. And at the same time, these two countries, Russia and USA, were competing against each other, and we thus know that there was the so-called Cold War between these two countries. And that is the reason why during that time USA even had one of the most fastest plane that mankind had ever seen during those times, and it was SR-71 Blackbird. So it was its first flight was in 1964, and since then it was then later commissioned to spy on other neighboring countries, and this was the only plane that could reach some of the most highest altitudes, and this one was able to actually fly through the stratosphere, and the speed of this plane was somewhat near around Mach 3, and it was extremely fast. And also it was one of the most major advancement for this plane was it was not detected by radar. So the body was made with some kind of material that used to absorb the radiation or the waves from the radar below down on the ground, and that is why it was invisible. So this plane, this particular spy plane, the SR-71 Blackbird, even had a very different kind of shape. It had delta wings like the Concorde, and still it looks like a plane, and it was not much of a circular flat object flying around. But then something happened during the 1947 initially, after the World War had ended, and it was at Roswell that something had crashed, and the USA government had suddenly secured the entire area, and no one was allowed within a certain distance of that crash radius. And there were small debris all around this place. The US military had come up, and special forces had come up, and they recovered all the debris from the crash site, and no one knows what was actually there. Now the localites of this place, have a very different kind of story to say. Some of them even say that they reached the place at the after the aircraft had crashed, and they say it's nothing from this earth. And some of them even have witnessed dead bodies, burnt bodies, but those bodies do not look like a human dead body. As for the US government, they said that it was a weather balloon that had crashed. So these weather balloons are high up there in the stratosphere, and sometimes there are incidents due to which the balloon burst and the entire thing falls down, and it's a massive crash. So that is a conspiracy that goes on, and that is from where we first have the idea that USA government had got something in their hands, and that was not of this world, rather something from a different world, maybe from a different time. And that is exactly where these stories originate from initially. And previously there was people were not very much aware of the fact that there could be life elsewhere other than Earth. Yes, of course, scientists had the idea, but for normal people, for conspiracy theorists, alien was not an important topic. After this incident, suddenly people all around the world, conspiracy theorists all around the world started coming up with their own theory. Some even trying to come up with proofs, and some localites or some of the retired US government official who were involved in this case during that time also came out, and they are widely known as whistleblowers on today's date. And without disclosing their identity, they come up with certain detailed information during of that incident. And they say they recovered objects with encryptions, more like a control panel or something with encryptions that was not of not in a language that was known to human, or maybe the bodies look like slender, small, short beings. Maybe it was one of the experimental aircrafts that the USA was testing during that time. Maybe that had crashed, and just to keep the secrecy, they tried to cover it up and say that it was a weather balloon. And then, if that was true and it was actually a US secret aircraft, then maybe USA played it in a very different way, and they actually allowed people to think of it as a otherworldly spacecraft from a different planet, or a different sort of alien life from a very different planet. Because that way people, or mostly the Russians, would not think that it was Americans, that they were developing something highly advanced and something high-tech aircraft. That way USA can cover up their own advancement in front of Russia. USA at that time, maybe they played it that way, so that the much important part for them was to win this Cold War with Russia. So that could be one option. The other option could be, yes, that might be a spacecraft that had crashed from a different world, and USA got its hand on it and they reverse engineered it, as a result of which we today come across all this high-tech aircrafts that USA has. And USA actually built something like an SR-71 Blackbird. Now let's come down to the topic that whether or not they actually exist. Yes, definitely there are billions and trillions of galaxies all around, and of course life in one of them could be a very big possibility, and it's it's almost possible. Then if we think in a very different way, that Earth is in a very special position exactly in our solar system, and everything about Earth is so much perfect that it can sustain life. It has a water, it has a habitable climate, and this climate is more due to because we have a moon that is of the perfect size and shape, and that's in a perfect distance, that creates a kind of pull towards the earth, and earth starts spinning on its axis, and that what gives us the climate and the tides, and that keeps earth in its position. And the thing is, earth the distance between earth and sun is exactly the perfect position that could be for a planet that sustains life, that could sustain life. And the zone in which earth is there in the solar system is known as a Goldilocks zone. It's like the perfect condition for a planet to host a life. We have started searching out for alien life in the entire universe. So we have started sending radio frequencies, and sending out probes and small satellites to our solar system, distant part of the solar system. But we are hopeless, and we think that we haven't found it yet, because the thing is, it takes time for this radio signals to reach the farthest part of the universe. And mentioning the conditions for a sustainable life also, it depends on the luck and chance, because a planet might be in a sustainable position to host a life, and then it also needs to survive, because it needs to stay away from the asteroids or comet collisions, or maybe the solar flares, or any kind of other calamity. Or maybe even if there is a life intelligent enough, they shouldn't be rather dumb enough to not destroy themselves, just like the way we do it in today's date. So in all this, taking all these things into account, even if there is a possibility, even if there is 100% possibility of the alien life existing elsewhere in this universe, I think the chances of us finding them right now, right this instant, is very thin, because they are far away. We do not have that kind of technology. So I think, for me, it should take another 100 years for us to advance up to that stage where we can actually travel across the galaxies and find alien life. Or maybe even if there is an advanced alien civilization out there, it would take them quite a lot of time to come back here. Saying all this, I think there is a very important part that we should also take note, and that is our history. Strangely, our history has a lot of about weird flying objects and flying people coming down from the skies, and it's there. I am not saying that the ancient alien theory is true, but might be, or there might be a possibility that this earth it said that the earth is 4 billion years old. So maybe sometime long back, when human civilization probably did not exist, or maybe when it was just the time when humans started evolving from ape. So at that time, maybe we were visited by higher intelligent life forms. There are various kind of mysterious architectural sites, one of them being Pumapunku. It's in Mexico, and the architecture, the walls of this particular site has small drills, drilled into it, and those are extremely fine. And archaeologists say that these kind of drill is or cannot be done with bare hands, or with any kind of other tools other than a machine. So that is one example. Another example are the Nazca lines by the Inca civilization. So these Nazca lines are weird, huge, massive drawings on the ground of various kind of animals and objects, and sometimes even solar system. So what are these, and why draw them in at a large scale? It only makes sense when you're flying above. Obviously, during the time of Incas, the Nazca lines, nobody flew nobody human did not have the technology to fly at that time. So then why draw them? Who's gonna, it's for whom? Maybe it was for them who came from the above, in spaceships known as chariots even, and they came down, and those were the landmarks and markings on which they had to land. So more like a helipad that we see nowadays. That is all I think about the alien civilization. So firstly, the conspiracy theories and everything starts off from the Roswell, and then we have lots of UFO sightings, and but nothing can prove that these flying spaceships or whatever this flying um, aircrafts are something from a different world. And then the second part is, we being in a very perfect place in a perfect time, this earth can actually host a life form. So other planets having this kind of luck, this kind of luck is very rare. So even if there are trillions of galaxies, and with trillions of galaxies having billions of planets, and then these billions of planets being on the exact shape and size and in the position, we could come down to a million planets. And then when we say this million planets being in the Goldilocks zone, and then again we can filter out the rest of them, and we have only 1,000 planets maybe in our hand. And from 1,000 planets being in the Goldilocks zone, they actually need to host single cell lives. And then from single cell life, it is very rare that something happens and a complex organism actually grows out of it. So we can even let go of another 90, and we have 10 in hand, where we have actual complex organisms. And out of this 10, maybe only one particular earth or like planet might be able to actually sustain high intelligent alien life form, much more intelligent than us, that they could actually come here. And they also would have to survive all the kinds of calamities or war or any kind of destruction, and survive them and actually come to us during this age. So that probability being very thin, I think at this moment expecting some kind of alien coming to our planet is not a very probable thing, or thing that we should expect. It might happen, I'm not saying I might be wrong, these are just mere suggestions and assumptions, but the chances are very less. And then finally, after saying all that, there is also another strange part, that our civilization, the ancient part, actually has a lot of writings and drawings and inscriptions about people coming down from the sky, and in chariots of fire, and showing mankind how to grow their own food and how to live their life, and helping them to build architectures, huge architectures and stuff. But then abruptly all of them are gone. So that is a huge mystery on our end. So we are not sure what our past is all about. So that is all we have about aliens at the moment. And then sightings of UFOs and hoaxes are a lot today. So do not believe any kind of hoax or any kind of video that you watch on YouTube, because those can be easily done on any kind of photo editing or video editing softwares and tools. So finding an alien and actually witnessing one spacecraft, alien spacecraft, is a matter of a lifetime. So that's not that easy, and you won't get to find that on YouTube or any kind of other website. So having a rational mind but still keeping it open, we have these 3 points. So think about the 3 points and let me know yourself, what do you think about them, about the Roswell incident, about the possibility of planet hosting a life, the probability of of all the planets within this universe hosting a life. And in the ancient past of ours, where we have various kind of scripts and inscriptions and writings and drawings and architectures and huge Nazca drawings on the ground of various kind of animals and weird shapes of flying objects maybe. So what does this last evidence tells us about our past? Maybe we, at some point of our time, maybe our ancestors came across a highly intelligent civilized being from a different world. Maybe it happened, and maybe someday soon in the future, maybe 100 or 200 years later, if we survive till then, maybe they'll come back and we'll get to know much more about our past. So that's it for tonight. So think about all these 3 points and have a rational and open mind, and so you have your food for thought. So see you again soon on some other video, and till then, take care, and please do not forget to like, share and comment and subscribe. Till then, goodbye.